going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and it's that time. Look at your clock, look at your watch. It's the 25th. It's time for the February edition of Ask the Phoenix. 96 questions for this Q&A, which is fantastic. So I gotta start off by thanking all of you guys. I gotta say, and I'm not gonna go off on a big ramble about this, with all the negativity swirling around wrestling right now, for the past fair bit, this has become one of my, I don't want to say safe havens because that sounds cliche, but it becomes one of the most fun things I do in the month, because all the hoopla that's going on around is everybody has different opinions, this and that and this and that, and at the end of the day, Ask the Phoenix that I do every month here is just my opinion, and it tells me that 96 times somebody wanted to know my opinion. It's not that I'm coming up here and proclaiming my opinion as fact, like some people do, but it does something good for the ego. So you guys are fantastic, and I can't thank you enough. Between this and the fan interaction videos and the responses I'm getting on my regular videos recently, the fact that we're almost at 530 in the sub category, which, you know, to bigger people seems like nothing, but to me is fantastic. You guys are really, really great. For anybody that hasn't seen this series before, here's the deal. Ask the Phoenix happens after the 25th of every month. Between the 1st and the 25th of every month, you have the opportunity to submit questions for that month's Q&A. You do it, like I say, for this, in the comment section of this video, you will be putting your questions for the March Q&A. So if you're watching this video and you say, when he does one in March, I've got a question I'd like him to ask, you put it down in the comment section of this video. If you, for some reason, are not able to, or you don't actually have a YouTube account or a Google account, so you can't leave comments and whatnot, my Facebook information is in the box below. You can message me a question, but I'd like that to be used as a last resort, because I've lost questions before and had people not offended, but kind of disappointed that the question wasn't answered. Also, there were some questions that were submitted for hashtag SPOK for the Fastlane tackle video that did not get included. There was a little bit of a hoo-for-ah around this month's tackle. OKFabe was unavailable, down to the wire, before I could find somebody else to co-host with me. Thank you to Guapo from the Wrestle Recap Show for filling those boots. I hope, and I'm looking into the camera at all of you, I hope to have the entire Wrestle Recap crew on board for the, what I'm assuming will be massive WrestleMania tackle. So Guapo, I hope you're coming back. Bring Christian, bring Suave. Hopefully we'll have Connor back, and we never know. We could have a massive tackle video coming up into WrestleMania, and isn't that appropriate going into WrestleMania? If anybody remembers years ago, when the Four Horsemen were still a thing, remember those guys? Remember when they were relevant? All 5 of us did an Elimination Chamber review. Now, granted, in that review, somebody by the name of Ashton tried to tell me that Santino Marella should have won the Elimination Chamber, so you can't always get what you want, but hopefully, tackle for WrestleMania will be huge and fun, as it always is. That's about it. So thank you to Guapo, and hopeful messages out to the rest of the Wrestle Recap crew. Thank you to all of you for your participation, and especially for the people that have sent me these 96 questions. Not much else to say. As I say, put your questions down in the box below for the March Q&A. The March Q&A will happen before WrestleMania, so all your WrestleMania specific questions can, I guess, go in that video. Going on, speaking of Guapo, his are the first questions on this Q&A. Current favorite in NXT. Now, when you say favorite, it goes two ways. Now, who do you think is the best, and who do you enjoy watching? That's not always the same people. Who are the best on the show? It's obviously Neville, Zayn, Owens, I guess Finn Balor, and what's his name? Hideo Itami. Who do I look forward to seeing? Like, who's badass? I look forward to seeing Finn Balor. I look forward to seeing Baron Corbin. And I look forward to seeing Enzo and Cass, just because they entertain me more. Those guys that I mentioned previously, they own the show. Let me be fully clear on that. But the ones that I look forward to seeing, because NXT. NXT is something I watch lightly. NXT, and I don't mean this in quality-wise whatsoever, but just in terms of the way I watch it, NXT is like TNA in the fact that I don't analyze it to death. You guys know I don't talk about it on this channel very often unless it's brought up on a Q&A. I watch them just to watch them. And I like preserving that for some things. I don't mind, you know, putting WWE under the microscope like we all do, but you need to have some wrestling that you watch that's not under that, so that you just enjoy it. And what I enjoy, I look forward to seeing Enzo and Cass. I look forward to seeing Blake and Murphy actually are not that bad either. They sort of snuck up out of nowhere and became tag champions, so I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but Blue Pants is awesome. Becky Lynch is, you know, probably not seen as the highest on the totem pole in the women's division, but I enjoy her. So current favorite, I'd say, I guess I'd go with Finn Balor, because that crosses over into the who do I like and who's sort of on top and who's the best. Finn Balor, long drawn out answer for that one. Expectation for Taker versus Bray at WrestleMania. Fantastic story. Fantastic counter promos once Undertaker's actually there. I think Undertaker will go into WrestleMania the veteran that he is, and he will operate within his abilities. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. Undertaker's getting old. We saw him at last year's WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar. I think Taker will take a look at himself, see what he can do well, and do that, and not overextend himself. You might not see the suicide dive, for example. You might not see the walking the ropes, but he will pick out the things that he can do incredibly well, and he will do them. And Bray Wyatt will do every awesome thing that he does. The one thing I do want to see is I want to see Bray Wyatt go do the backwards spider walk thing and have Taker just pick him up, deadlift into a tombstone, because I think that spot would look great. The other thing I want to see is I want to see Bray Wyatt hit his sister Abigail on the Undertaker, go to pin him, pull Undertaker back up, and tombstone him. Because I think that would be poetic. But Bray Wyatt will be on his A game, and Undertaker will facilitate that. Undertaker will lose. If you want my prediction right now, a bit early, but Undertaker will lose. The company man and the professional that the Undertaker is, now that the streak is no longer a thing, there's no reason for him to win. And if anybody knows that, it's somebody like the Undertaker. Well, however many more matches he has, 1, 2, 3, whatever, I think he's going to put over new people on his way out. And I think that's what he should do. And I think that's that will confirm the respect that all of us have for the Undertaker. So, looking forward to it a lot. Prediction for Andre the Giant Battle Royal. My prediction for the Andre the Giant Battle Royal as it stands right now, the last 2 people in will be Miz and Mizdow, and Mizdow will eliminate the Miz, and all the Damien Sandow fans will jizz their pants. In lieu of them getting Miz versus Mizdow as a match. Any current jobber or mid-card guy that you would like to see move forward into a better spot on the court or the main event, excluding Ziggler, because we all know he should be main eventing, LOL. Well, yes, Ziggler should be main eventing, LOL. 2 guys, and I know there's a lot that need to be in a better spot than they're in. 2 guys that I would love to see. If Fandango was still, like, super creepy, uncomfortable Johnny Curtis from NXT, he could be a strong mid-card player. Same goes for Adam Rose. If Adam Rose was still Leo Kruger, he could be a strong mid-card player. So, I would love to see Adam Rose come out with almost a dual personality bit. Now, people might think that that's a little weird or whatever, but the precedent's already been set by somebody like Mick Foley. Now, am I saying that Leo Kruger / Adam Rose is the next Mick Foley? Absolutely not, but we've seen it happen before. And, to my point, they're doing it with Cody Rhodes / Goldust right now. So I think Adam Rose being the nice guy, Leo Kruger being the bad guy, so to speak, more people will like Leo Kruger. Adam Rose, the nice guy, will wonder why the other guy is getting cheered, and he'll almost have a rivalry with himself. I think that that's an incredible story we could do going forward. Johnny Curtis, as much as Fandango is fun, and as much as seeing Fandango make his debut at WrestleMania and beat Chris Jericho and have the entrance with like 20 dancers on the WrestleMania stage was fantastic, I think the Johnny Curtis character would garner so much heat at this point that that he could be something fantastic at the tippy top of the mid-card. Maybe he would be in the position going with Ziggler and Ambrose and people like that for the Intercontinental Championship. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Nikki Bella, Brie Bella, and Paige. You have to marry one, fuck one, and kill one. Go. Well, I'd kill Brie, because clearly she has bad decision-making. I'd bang the fuck out of Nikki Bella, and then I'd go home with my wife, Paige. That's how that would go. And number 6 is a selfless Wrestle Recap plug and the fact that Guapo rules. So yes, once again, go to youtube.com/TheBlackCatFeline. That's where you will find the Wrestle Recap show. You will find Guapo. If you want to know what Guapo's like, go back to my Fastlane Tackle video. He and Suave and Christian have a great show. It's not like an every week thing or whatever, but they do know what the hell they're talking about, and they have a lot of fun, and they're not full of hate like some people in the YWC are. So, Guapo, thank you for that. Thank you for all of you guys and your continuous support of this channel, and we're moving on. Logan Claiborne sent me 20 questions. Of course he did. Wyatt versus Undertaker is going to happen, but how would you book it from this week's Raw onward? People said it before, and I kind of didn't agree. I'm starting to agree more and more and more now. I would have it be a very Kane versus Undertaker, Spooky Powers versus Spooky Powers. I would have Wyatt pull all the things that Undertaker would be expected to pull off. Like, I would have, instead of a casket with Bray Wyatt burning in it as Undertaker sending this great big message, I would have a Undertaker effigy in a casket on fire or something like that. Much the same as he did at Fastlane with the caskets and the Druids and all that sort of thing. I would have the Undertaker, when he finally makes his entrance to respond to Bray Wyatt, when Bray Wyatt comes out and calls out the Undertaker in the ring, and the Undertaker's actually there, I would have it so that the Druids are out there, and they've got the posts and all that sort of thing and whatnot, and as he's making his way to the ring, I would have the Druids attack the Undertaker. Take off the robes and whatever, and you see like 20 or 30 guys with sheet masks on, and have Undertaker in an uncompromising position, say, you know, Undertaker, dead man, I'm going to bury you alive, and it's going to be a casket match or some ridiculous thing like that. Take all these the symbolism that you usually go into an Undertaker intimidation tactic and turn it on the Undertaker. Have it so that, you know, if they want to do a lightning spot where Bray Wyatt's on the rampway, Undertaker's in the ring, and Undertaker, you know, puts his hand up as if the lightning is going to strike Bray Wyatt, and have the special effects guys on form and have that lightning bounce and hit the ring instead. You know, emphasize the powers of Bray Wyatt. Then just have him come out, and after the Undertaker's powers have failed, just have Bray Wyatt sitting there laughing in his rocking chair on the stage, and have him start singing, and the crowd will sing with him, and have the Undertaker. This is the only time I would kind of support piping in some crowd noise, but make it so that for definite the crowd is behind Bray Wyatt, and have the Undertaker sitting in the ring, confused, taken aback, second-guessing himself. Have the dead man, the man at WrestleMania, because Shawn Michaels is gone now, questioning himself all the way to WrestleMania. I think that would be a fantastic story to tell. If Stone Cold Steve Austin was to return the night after WrestleMania this year to set up a feud for Mania next year, who would you have it be against? It would be Triple H. 100%. If you're going to reintroduce Steve Austin, have Steve Austin come out during Sting versus Triple H, stun Triple H while the referee's not looking, then you have a match set up for next year. Right there. Just have Steve Austin come out on Raw. It would be a cool way to plug the network, too. Look, I tried to get the right answers out of you. I tried to get the right answers out of the old man. There's nothing doing. There's nothing happening with that. I had to take it to the next level. You, me, WrestleMania next year for your COO ship or something along those lines. I think it would be fantastic. And much like when I made the video a while ago about Triple H versus The Rock happening one more time, all the storyline pieces are already there. So it would just be a matter of pulling the trigger. It wouldn't be something you'd have to fabricate on the spot. In your opinion, who's the biggest potential star in the WWE that has been buried right now? You want to say Ziggler, but then he's a multiple-time champion. It's hard to say. I would say Ambrose, but like his losses build his character. I don't really know. At this point, I know there's a lot of people that aren't where they should be, but, like, at the same time, I look at where they are, and there's I guess you could say Damien Sandow, but you gotta think there's more people deserving than that. Wade Barrett, I don't think, has had a fair kick at the can. At all. At all. Love to see him in a more prominent spot. I'd love to see a spot where, okay, not necessarily he's going to go to the main event of WrestleMania, but I'd like to see him in a spot where it's at least believable that he would go to the main event at WrestleMania. How's that? He, with the Nexus, was main evented one pay-per-view with Randy Orton and John Cena, and he just looked like he didn't belong there. It was much like The Miz being involved in the Cena Rock story. It just looked like he didn't belong there. My boy The Miz is awesome, but he didn't belong there, for sure. My chair's doing its thing again. If Lesnar resigns, where does he go from here? Where does he go from there if you are booking? If Lesnar resigns, he doesn't get booked anymore. I don't really understand that question. If you want to say, like, what story would I tell? I would tell a story where Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar was so ashamed that he retired and he reconsidered his entire life and went on to a different sport and use it to bump up Roman Reigns. But I mean, if Lesnar resigns, how do you book him if he's not there anymore? I don't understand that question at all. What are your thoughts on Samoa Joe possibly coming to the WWE, and how would you bring him in? I would have him come in and attack Kevin Owens and start off big and strong. Do you remember when Kurt Angle debuted in TNA, and the one that went after Kurt Angle was Samoa Joe, and that was how you brought in Angle strong, not that he really needed it, but yeah, it sort of firecrackered from there. I would have him debut on NXT and go head-to-head with Kevin Owens, and have that be his first feud right off the bat. They've both been in ROH. My knowledge of ROH is shit, guys. You guys know this. But I'm sure they have history in ROH. I'm sure they've fought before. So I think it could go great. Job, Team, and Barry Faction Edition. Shield, Four Horsemen, and DX. Here we go. I would job to the Shield because they are the future. They need to be made strong going forward. I would team with DX just because it would be fucking fun. And as much as people will hang me for this, I would bury the Four Horsemen. Oh, yes. Is it even possible for Kane to be taken seriously anymore after so many character changes? His brother would have to be involved. His brother would really have to be involved. I would have Kane go into a match at WrestleMania next year, because we don't know if Undertaker is going to be involved next year. We're assuming he's going into the Hall of Fame, but we don't know if he's going to have a match or not. I would have Kane in a match with somebody. Probably somebody that the Authority doesn't like, because he'd still be in the Authority. Now, for those of you that watch TNA, do you remember when James Storm took over the Great Sonata? And then James Storm and Great Sonata took over Manic, and then they got their hands on Koya and the Monster Abyss. What I would do is whoever Kane went against, have him get beaten by Daniel Bryan, whatever. He's laying there in the ring. Daniel Bryan leaves off all victorious and goatee and whatever. Have Undertaker come in with a casket, roll Kane into it, have the Undertaker cart his brother out of the arena, and then you don't see Kane for a year. Next year, Rumble, or around Rumble time, you start seeing fire go off for no reason. You start seeing little symbols being left around here and there, like maybe a new mask and whatever. And for no reason at all, Kane's debut pops up on the Titantron, where he ripped the cage off the Hell in the Cell, where all the devastating, him setting JR on fire. And then you see him debut against somebody. You see him go right to the top, like they did before, but more balls to the wall than before. You see the Undertaker come out, he throws his hand up in the air, big flames come up from the stage, Kane re-debuts, and, I don't know, destroys the Authority and whoever else is in the ring with them, and goes on from there. I've always hated that Kane's character kind of depended on the Undertaker to a certain extent, because his entire character is that he's Undertaker's little brother. But at this point, the only way that he could be revamped well would be to, in fact, mooch some of that credibility off of The Undertaker. Undertaker took him back to hell and retrained him how to be a demon, or some sort of symbolism like that. And like I say, with The Undertaker in general, the WWE creative team and their special effects guys and their pyrotechnics guys would have a field day with that. I think it could be done. I think it would be difficult, because no matter what, somebody would be trying to pick it apart. You know, you don't need to bring him back in a welding mask again. That was weird. It could be done. Should the NXT title be defended on the WrestleMania main card? Yes. Just yes. Or at the very least, have the NXT Championship defended on the kickoff. And I don't mean like somewhere on the kickoff. I mean like right at the end of the kickoff. So the first thing you see on the WrestleMania card proper is whoever won the match leaving the arena with the belt. Be it Kevin Owens, be it Sami Zayn, be it, hey, Samoa Joe. Although I know Samoa Joe just signed with Ring of Honor, so yeah, that's a thing. Is Seth Rollins ready to be WWE Champion? Yes. Now, whether his championship will be taken seriously or not depends on who he takes it off of. If he takes it off of Brock Lesnar, I'm not going to lie, that's going to look a little strange. If he takes it off Roman, it'll still look strange, but most people that hate Roman Reigns will accept it. If he takes it off of anybody like Orton or Cena or Sheamus, everybody will love it. If he takes it off Daniel Bryan, people will hate him. But Seth Rollins as a champion, absolutely. I could see him taking the when they used to put the nameplates on the belts, and instead of having Seth Rollins, I could just see him getting a nameplate that says the future. And I think that would be cocky as hell, and it would work. It would be fantastic. If you could pick one tag team faction to return WWE after WrestleMania, who would it be? That would be the Hardy Boys. That would be the Hardy Boys. No questions asked. Hardys versus the Ascension. Hardys versus the Usos. Hardys versus Cesaro and Kid. Hardys versus the Primetime Players. Hardys versus the Lucha Dragons. Hardys versus Blake and Murphy. Hardys versus the Vaudevillains. No contest. It would be the Hardy Boys. If Edge could have one more match, which of these matches would be most interesting to you? Edge versus Ambrose, Edge versus Rollins, or Edge versus Reigns? Well, Edge versus Reigns would just be the Battle of the Spears, and that's been done when he fought Rhino. Edge versus Rollins... Edge versus Rollins if Edge was face, and they were going to do something like a ladder match. Edge versus Ambrose if Edge was heel, and we wanted to do a who's crazier, unstable, rated R superstar type of Edge rather than a babyface Edge. Edge versus Reigns, I don't think it would be booked well. That's the thing. Edge versus Reigns would be an incredible rub for Roman that he could use, but I don't think it would work. As for the other two, it would depend whether you brought him back as face or heel. Should this year be Undertaker's last WrestleMania? I went out of last year's WrestleMania thinking that should have been his last WrestleMania. I'm going into this with an open mind and a lot of hope for Bray Wyatt. If he shows me something at this WrestleMania, I won't mind him coming back for 32. Or, not 32, they're not giving WrestleMania numbers anymore, I read somewhere. So this is like WrestleMania play, and next year's like WrestleMania star, because it's in Texas. But be that as it may, I'd almost like to say I want to wait until after WrestleMania to answer that question, because if he's come back, if last year was just a bad year, and he comes back this year and he shows what he can do, and he shows that he's comfortable within his current ability, then by all means come back next year and wreck shop with somebody. I'd love to see Undertaker versus Ambrose, for example. But it's all going to depend, wouldn't it? Who is the most deserving of a WWE Championship reign on the current roster? I'd say Ziggler, because you see the reaction he gets when he won the World Heavyweight Championship. Put the belt on him at some point. Have it not be long, because fans' disappointment of him getting short title reigns, it only increased his fan base. It only increased the sympathy and the want for him to have a title again. It was kind of like the Daniel Bryan 18 seconds thing. He lost and he looked like an absolute jobber that night, but it ultimately helped propel him to superstardom. So, have him get a quick win on somebody like Rollins once Rollins has his turn, and have the Authority come back like a month later and screw it out of him in some sort of shady ways fashion. But yeah, of course Ziggler. Ziggler, if not Ambrose. If Jericho came back on the main roster, who should he put over? I'd like to think that it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion that Jericho would lose. I would like to see Jericho win some matches at some point. I know he's doing the proper business thing, and he's, you know, laying the road out for the future and all that sort of thing, but that doesn't mean he needs to job to everybody. You know, I loved the irony of him losing to Fandango, but he didn't have to do that. If he was going to absolutely lose, I would use him to bring up somebody from NXT. If Corey Graves was still active on the roster, I'd love to see Corey Graves versus Chris Jericho. But if from who's on the roster right now, somebody like Tyson Kidd, which I know is on the bottom of some people's lists, and I don't understand why. Again, you get somebody like an Ambrose. Jericho versus Daniel Bryan could be good. Jericho versus Daniel Bryan was the first NXT match ever, if my memory serves me correctly. So they could build right from that. I mean, let's see, Wade Barrett kicked Daniel Bryan out of the Nexus, and Wade Barrett was mentored by Jericho. There's stuff right there. Jericho was a Bret Hart fan, and Daniel Bryan was mentored by Shawn Michaels. You could build all kinds of reasons for these guys to have a fight, and it's like I say, so many of the things that I suggest these days are not just because, oh, that would be a cool match. It's because all the pieces are already set there. They're right there in front of you. Just put them, the puzzle is there, just put them together. And we've Paige. If Sting has more than one match in the WWE, who should his next opponent be? Bray Wyatt. If Bray Wyatt beats The Undertaker, he could go on to say, look, I'm not just the best thing in the WWE. I've beaten the icon of WWE. Now I might as well go beat the icon of WCW. Be fantastic. Bring back Tommy Dreamer. Beat the icon of ECW. Oh, the ECW fans are going to hate that one. Bring in Samoa Joe even for a day. Look, I'm going to beat one of the icons of TNA. Should Big Show retire? Now, I know this is a popular thought that we should get rid of the Big Show. But at the same time, no. Because he's not stealing main event spot from anybody. All he's doing is putting other people... I can't remember the last time the Big Show won anything. Like, one-on-one, when was the last time the Big Show won anything? And, you know... It's super impressive. I mean, like, Big Show is not an impressive guy these days. He's a big guy, and he's there because he's big. People using Daniel Bryan's victory over the Big Show as a reason why Daniel Bryan should beat Brock Lesnar are out of their minds. It's a thing. But Big Show is... I go back to WrestleMania... I don't remember what WrestleMania it was. I think it was either WrestleMania 20 or 21. John Cena versus the Big Show for the U.S. title. The first time we saw John Cena pull off the Attitude Adjustment on the Big Show, it was a huge thing. It made everybody sit up and take notice at the time. Anybody that can do anything to the Big Show, other than Daniel Bryan's silly kicks, is going to look fantastic. So he's there, and his role in the WWE right now is to be a big bump in the road for people. So who do you put in that place next? The only other one is Kane, and Kane, as we've already talked about, is very, very hard to take seriously at this point in time. Next, Paul Heyman guy. If Lesnar leaves, should be who? My first choice would be Roman Reigns. My second choice would be for Paul Heyman to take on a Heyman girl and have Paul Heyman manage Paige, because I think that would be fantastic. That would be the first... I think that could be the first domino in a very large spread out effect on the women's division, making them seem more prominent. Can you imagine Paul Heyman on the pre-show or on the kickoff or just even in the ring cutting any promo that had anything to do with the Divas division? WWE would almost have to take the WWE Divas division seriously at that point in time. There's nobody else really that I could see Paul Heyman managing in the Divas division other than Paige, because... Unless Paul Heyman managed the Bella twins, which would just get weird after a while, wouldn't it? Because then he'd just look like a creepy old man. But yeah, Roman Reigns or Paige. Is the PG era nearing an end? I hope so. I hope so. And people are being a little bit more loose with the language. We've seen a little bit of blood here and there. Seems like Roman Reigns busts his nose every time he has a match these days, which is not okay either. I'm not particularly against the PG rating as I was, Because here's the reality. I'm not against PG because we should be doing this, we should be doing this, we should be doing this. We need blood, we need chair shots, we need swearing, we need tits and ass. These are not the reasons why I'm against PG. WWE, at the end of the day, is a creative product. Creativity, with any limitations, will not be as good. That's just how it is. And PG, basically all PG does is say you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. So your spectrum of creativity goes from here to here. And it's like, okay, here's your spectrum of creativity now. Now create this big a show. It's not. It's a handcuff, and it's not necessarily. It's like legitimate handcuffs. It's not to say that people shouldn't be out there committing crimes, but if they commit crimes, they're going to end up in handcuffs. But you're not going to be able to put on a show like you did when you didn't have the handcuffs on, as you do now. So I hope the PG era is coming to an end, not because I want to see tits and ass every week, not because, I think everybody should take 12 chair shots to the head and nub like Chris Benoit, but because the product needs to breathe, and I know I've been saying that a lot. The product needs to breathe, the creative division needs to breathe, the wrestlers need to be able to breathe, because you get a super intense guy. I remember when Scott Steiner debuted, and the first thing he said was, "Give me the fucking mic." Now, obviously, he wasn't supposed to say that, but today, if somebody accidentally said, "Give me the fucking mic," they would be shitting their pants, because they would wonder if they had a job when they walked back through the curtain. I think having it not be PG would just help everybody relax and make everything more natural. And as I say, it would let the entire product as a whole breathe more. Do you watch MMA? The answer is no. Would you think the Bullet Club would fit in well in WWE? Now, I have to give you a two-part answer on that one. Questions like that are really, really hard because you never know if anybody's going to fit in the WWE, because you never know what the WWE is going to do with them when they get there. Leo Kruger was great. Adam Rose sucks. Johnny Curtis was fantastic. Fandango, in most people's opinions, suck. The Ascension was wrecking shop on NXT, and a lot of people have fallen off them since they've gone to the main roster. I don't agree with that one, but it is what it is. Raw and the Truth Killings in TNA was great. Our Truth in WWE is kind of a joke. Christian was fighting for the world title in TNA, and yeah, could not pay the audience for some momentum in WWE. Second half of the question is the Bullet Club is from, I don't even know. I've heard the name. I know they're either from ROH or Lucha Underground or Japan or something else, and GFW. I don't know where. I've heard the name, and I've seen like memes and still shots online or whatever. They look like a bunch of badasses. I don't know anything about them, so it wouldn't be fair for me to make a comment as, oh, how well do I think they would do in the WWE, because I don't have enough to go on. What I will say, though, is I've heard several people compare them to the NWO, and to my point, once again, NWO was huge in WCW. NWO in WWE lasted a few months, and that was with their main three guys, Hogan, Hall, and Nash. So, I mean, they look like badasses, but that's all I know about them. I haven't seen them in matches. I haven't seen what they're doing as a group, so I really can't answer that one. I'm sorry. Thank you for those 20 questions, though. Dossie Chatham gave me 2 questions. New name and a new face to the Q&As, as far as I know, so welcome. If Brock Lesnar and Daniel Bryan were to happen at WrestleMania 31, do you think there would be more silly kicks from Daniel Bryan or more German suplexes from Brock Lesnar? And would there be any other moves booked in the match? That is fucking fantastic. I think Bryan would sell the suplexes less than Cena did. Cena was booked to be destroyed at SummerSlam. Bryan, because the fans would want it, because the underdog story is never ending, would no-sell the suplexes, and that would kill the match for me. And the other half of that is Brock Lesnar. I have to do this again. Went through Triple H, went through Shawn Michaels, went through CM Punk, went through John Cena like a buzzsaw, beat The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. If he went to WrestleMania 31 and had to sell the Daniel Bryan silly kicks, I would vomit. That's a thing. So yeah, you'd have a lot of both. Brock Lesnar does do other stuff, and to his credit, Daniel Bryan does other stuff, and I think the match would be short. I can't put my finger on why, but I think the match would be short. Other moves we looking back, obviously there'd be F5s. I'd love to see the return of the Brock Lock. Just see Daniel Bryan just sort of dangling there. I would love to see, when Brock Lesnar first came in, he did that sort of that multiple powerbomb thing that he used to do. I'd love to see that happen to Daniel Bryan too, especially since he's supposedly got a bad neck. Do you think Triple H's opponent at WrestleMania should be a bigger name such as Sting, The Rock, or John Cena, or should Triple H's opponent be talents on the lower card such as Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Dolph Ziggler? Basically, should he have a big money match, or should he be used to help talent over at WrestleMania? Here's the thing. I get where you're coming from on that, because Triple H versus, if we did do Triple H versus The Rock, for example, it would be two part-timers having a fight. And does that help everybody in the everyday? Not really. If somebody, like last year, like Daniel Bryan went and beat Triple H, obviously that helped Daniel Bryan. If Dean Ambrose were to beat Triple H this year, obviously that would help Daniel Bryan. Roman Reigns, if Roman Reigns wasn't going for the title, a match I want to see is Roman Reigns versus Triple H. But let's be real. Triple H versus The Rock will draw more money. It'll draw more buys, it'll draw more eyes to the product. And if you draw more eyes, more money, more buys to the product, the company's doing better, there's more people watching the product, and more people get a chance to see Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Dolph Ziggler, the Lucha Dragons, and the Usos, and Kid, and Cesaro, and all that sort of thing. So it is a catch-22, because for the people that are already watching, of course you want to see one of your guys get put over by Triple H. For the people that want more eyes on the guy that you're already watching, you would want Triple H versus The Rock. It depends because you need both of those things to happen at WrestleMania. It depends which one of those roles you would want Triple H to fill that year, because it really is a catch-22. Both of them do great things for the company. I know a lot of people hate part-time guys, part-time schedules, all that sort of thing. The one downside, and I'll use Cena and Rock as an example. We knew a year in advance that The Rock and John Cena were going to fight, but The Rock went away for a year, and it just hung over everybody's head. Rock and Cena are going to fight next year at WrestleMania. Now, The Rock goes off and he does whatever. Triple H, it would be the same thing, would go off and do whatever. Whoever he's gonna fight at WrestleMania, this is what happened to John Cena. Nothing that John Cena did that year mattered. And I don't mean to put down all the guys that he was working with or anybody that he had a match with, but the culmination of the wrestling year happens at WrestleMania. If you've got somebody like John Cena who's there all the time, he has to basically put in a year of filler matches until WrestleMania. But ultimately, none of them mattered because you already knew what he was doing at WrestleMania. I don't think I would want to do that to somebody like a Dean Ambrose or a Seth Rollins or a Roman Reigns or a Daniel Bryan or anybody else, because basically whoever's watching them is on pause until WrestleMania because we already know where it was going to... Whereas you'd rather be taken on a story and build gradually to WrestleMania. So, I don't know. You got two different sides of the coin there, two different scenarios that produce two very different positive aspects for the company. I don't know if I can say one makes more sense than the other. I just can't. Matt Jericho says, do you think that Wyatt beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania will devalue Brock Lesnar, ending The Undertaker's streak, and anybody else that he beats? You can't avoid that. You really can't, because it's like nobody could beat The Undertaker. Here's this guy that beat The Undertaker. So now anybody that beats Lesnar could have conceivably beat The Undertaker. So every time... I don't choose to focus on this, but every time Brock Lesnar loses to somebody, or when he loses to somebody, it means by proxy that that person could have beaten The Undertaker, and we just never saw it. Which is sad. Like, if Roman Reigns beats Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania and everybody's done crying about that, it puts in your head the idea that Roman Reigns could have beaten The Undertaker, and more people will cry about that as well. Nobody would have minded the idea that Daniel Bryan could beat The Undertaker, though, so that's catch-22 right there. The Zohan says, if you don't like the booking, then change it. How would you book Daniel Bryan winning at WrestleMania 31 in the spazziest way possible? I would have had Rollins win on Raw when they challenged Roman Reigns' Royal Rumble victory, and they said, well, we're going to have Seth Rollins versus Daniel Bryan, and the winner's going to face you for the shot at WrestleMania. I would have had Rollins win that match through some scheming means, and maybe Daniel Bryan like fucks up his ankle or something like that, doesn't make it to Fastlane. Roman Reigns would have still won at Fastlane. He would have destroyed Seth Rollins. And the night after, while Seth Rollins is making excuses for losing to Rollins, Daniel Bryan comes out and attacks him and says, "You cost me my championship at WrestleMania, so now I'm taking on you at WrestleMania and putting your briefcase on the line." I would have had him beat Seth Rollins for the briefcase. I would have then had the proper match, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, and had Daniel Bryan cash in on whoever won that match. One of the things that people seem to still be misunderstanding about me, I have no problem with Daniel Bryan being in the title picture again. I really don't. I would have no problem with him going on at Extreme Rules to beat Roman Reigns for the title. I really wouldn't. What I have a problem with is him going against logic into the main event at WrestleMania. That was my only problem. I have no problem with him being a champion. I have no problem with him beating anybody. Really. I don't. I like Ziggler, but let Bryan beat Ziggler. Okay. Let Bryan beat Ambrose. Okay. Let Bryan beat Wyatt because he owes him one. Okay. But have it make sense. You were eliminated at number 10 in the Rumble. You don't get the shot at WrestleMania. That's just how it is. But yeah, have him go for Rollins' briefcase, win the briefcase, and cash in on the winner. Then you've got a ready-made feud, Rollins versus Reigns versus Bryan at Extreme Rules, and we're off to the races. Lesnar goes off and retires and sips a Mai Tai or goes back to UFC or whatever the hell he does. Everybody wins. Just do things that make sense. Don't say, "Oh, I lost my title a year ago because I was gimped up, so I deserve another one." Like, fuck off. Fuck off. Matt from In the Ropes Show. What match made you become a wrestling fan? Oh, that was a gradual thing, man. You can't pinpoint one match. You just can't. Out of Matt, Zach, and Josh, which one of the ITRS crew would you like to be in a rant-off against and why? And Matt, the answer would be you, because I've never spoken to the other two directly. I mean, you guys put on a great show. Do not get me wrong, guys. Go check out the In the Ropes Show. I think it's just youtube.com/In the Ropes Show. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me down in the box below. Matt, you're the only one I've spoken to, so I guess I'd rant off against you. What moment in wrestling made you sit back and think to yourself, you went too far? Okay. Is there a point in wrestling where WWE has gone too far? The first one that comes to mind is Katie Vick. Second one that comes to mind is CM Punk with Paul Bearer's urn before WrestleMania 29. My answer is this. You can't pose questions like that. If you want wrestling to be badass, if you want it to be a true, like I said earlier, if you want it to be a true creative process, if you want it to be a true open creative process, nothing can be off limits. Nothing. Because the more real you are, the more people will get invested. And there are real people in the world that are that shitty. There are real people out in the world that are necrophiliacs, unfortunately, which is kind of gross to think about, but it is a thing. There are people in this world disrespectful enough to disrupt another person's funeral. It happens. It happens more than we probably know. So wrestling's all about your suspension of disbelief, and suspension of disbelief logically leads to us, believing that this is real. And if something is real, then there's nothing in it that happens in real life that can't happen on the show. If I was going to say something, it would probably be one of those two events, but I can't sit here and say that that's too far, because then I'm going up against my primary thing, which is any limitation on a creative product makes it worse. If you put a gun to my head and told me to choose, I'd probably either choose Katie Vick or the CM Punk Undertaker bit. But on the whole, my answer is they haven't. They just haven't. But thank you for the questions. Zohan is feeling nice and only sent me 50 questions this month. What are the best match moments of Rhino? I haven't seen very much of Rhino, so probably either when he was tag teaming with Tajiri or when he was fighting Chris Benoit. What's the most violent match you've ever seen in your memory? JBL and Eddie Guerrero fought to a match where Eddie got busted open hard way and just bled all over the ring till almost the entire ring was red. That was pretty violent. I don't know what you want to say. Cactus Jack versus Randy Orton at Backlash, Edge versus Mick Foley at WrestleMania, Mankind, Undertaker, Hell in the Cell, depending on what type of violence you're talking about. There's a couple that have just kind of made you cringe a little bit. Thoughts on the Brian Kendrick? The Brian Kendrick was great. The Brian Kendrick was the prototypical nerd on the schoolyard that couldn't get fucked with because one of his buddies was on the football team, obviously referring to Big Zeke, Ezekiel Jackson, and he played out that role. He was the cruiserweight, going for the Cruiserweight Championship, but if anybody tried to take it from him or get involved with him or be in any kind of match with him whatsoever, they had to face somebody 3 times his size. And he knew that, and he had cockiness based on that, and it was fucking fantastic. The Brian Kendrick was kind of a precursor to The Miz in a lot of ways. If you remember when Miz was tag teaming with The Big Show, he had much the similar thing. Who is somebody WWE should have signed but never did? I'm going to say DDP, and people are not going to agree with me, and that's fine. But so DDP had a very short run in WWE where he stalked The Undertaker's wife and then became a motivational speaker. If you booked the strong DDP character that ran roughshod over WCW, you would have had a hell of a star right there. You could have had the match that everybody wanted to see, the RKO versus the Diamond Cutter, and all kinds of other things. Sorry, guys, my nose is doing a thing again. You guys know how it goes. Best wrestling autobiography, I would have to say, I'm just looking up at my shelf right now, the one on Punk, the one on Edge, and the one on Paul Heyman are the 3 favorites that I have of the ones that I have up on my shelf. Do you have any WWE versus New Japan Pro Wrestling dream matches? No, because I don't watch New Japan. Again, it's one of those questions that I'm not really qualified to answer. Best WWE repackaged characters. Most of the time, WWE repackages somebody. It's to the point where people don't like the repackaging. I guess repackaging Isaac Yankem into the original Kane, as badass as Kane used to be, was the one that springs to mind. If Brock Lesnar leaves after this year, what should Paul Heyman do? I've already answered that. He should manage Roman Reigns or Paige. Who should have The Undertaker face at WrestleMania but never did? There's some fun ones. I would have loved to see like Undertaker versus the Boogeyman. I think it would have been great. I would have loved to see Undertaker versus Kevin Thorne, Undertaker versus Gangrel, Undertaker versus Mordecai. All the other like demon type characters would have been great. Now they wouldn't have been main event caliber for sure, but they would have been fun. They would have made sense. Like Kane versus Undertaker 3 times. And yeah. Lost my place. Best February pay-per-view has got to be the Elimination Chamber, because when we had 2 pay-per-views, the Elimination Chamber served a purpose. Royal Rumble built one of the title matches, the Elimination Chamber built the other one. It made sense. But that being said, now that we only have 1 title, and now that the structure should be, we know the main event of WrestleMania as soon as the Royal Rumble's over, it's just a filler pay-per-view. You go back to the days of No Way Out. If anybody remembers the 4-on-4 non-sanctioned match from No Way Out of Texas, do shit like that. Do crazy shit to build all kinds of stories to WrestleMania, but don't touch the main event. Again, I lost my place. What are your thoughts on Rikishi? What would be the best opening match for WrestleMania 31? Might think I'm crazy. I think Wyatt versus Undertaker opening the show would be good. Again, it's one of those, you guys come to me for my opinion, so that's my opinion. I can't give you a logical reason why. I can't put my finger on why even myself. But I think Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt would be a good opening match for the show. Oh, excuse me. Thoughts on Rikishi? Great guy. I wish they'd tried him out a little longer as a bad guy, as a main event bad guy, because I think that could have been great. But mostly he was there. He was fun. He was athletic for a guy his size. The stink face was fucking hilarious. Him and Too Cool had a really cool, no pun intended, faction going on there. Thoughts on Lawrence Taylor main eventing WrestleMania 6 against Bam Bam Bigelow? Celebrity guests. Thoughts on Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg at WrestleMania 20? Goldberg versus Lesnar was the biggest blue ball I can think of in the history of WrestleMania, because everybody was so fucking hyped for that match. From the time that Lesnar debuted and the time that Goldberg came to the WWE, these guys have got to fight. They just have to. It needs to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to be fucking phenomenal, and it just wasn't. Nobody cared was the problem. I think it was... this is the era of the dirt sheets coming into fruition, good and proper, isn't it? It's, both of these guys are leaving, we no longer have a reason to care, and we're going to let you know about it. And it was in New York, so that kind of crowd is always going to let you know when they don't give a shit. Best wrestler to never main event of WrestleMania, CM Punk, bar none. Where does the best versus the beast, CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar, rank as the greatest SummerSlam matches? It's got to be near the top. The psychology was great, the in-ring work was great, and here's where I will give CM Punk 3 tons of credit. He is very, very similar to Daniel Bryan in a lot of ways, and this isn't a dig at Daniel Bryan, so don't come and hang me for this. The reason I don't want to see Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar is because Daniel Bryan's character reminds us constantly that he's small. Part of his character, or part of his underdog story, or whatever you want to call it, is that he's small. You guys don't want me to win the title because I'm small. You guys don't expect me to do anything because I'm small. I beat you even though I'm small and shouldn't be winning, and logic dictates that I should get destroyed right now. That's Daniel Bryan's character. CM Punk isn't that much bigger or different than Daniel Bryan, but CM Punk doesn't sit there and lean on the underdog story like a crutch. CM Punk comes out there like a badass. I'm going to take you down. So I could watch CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar, and the size was not a factor. I never thought to myself consciously, wow, look how small CM Punk is, or wow, look how big Brock Lesnar is. Just two fantastic guys out there having a match. The credit for that, and the credit for bringing that presence to the ring, lays squarely on the shoulders of CM Punk. The match was fantastic. I'd love to see it again, but oh wait, by the time we could see that again, they could both be in UFC. On a little side note, apparently Brock Lesnar sent CM Punk a tweet that said, "Hey kid, if you want me to teach you how to do this UFC thing, let me know," which is funny. Thoughts on Randy Savage versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8? Historic. I'm not going to say much else about it. What's the most boring thing on WWE TV? Everybody has a different opinion of what's boring on WWE TV. One of the most boring things on WWE TV isn't there anymore, and I feel bad for him because he got injured and whatnot, and he's not able to wrestle anymore, but Santino Marella was one of the most boring things on TV. The most boring... I'll change your question slightly. The most boring thing to me as a wrestling fan is the knowledge that is the knowledge that no matter how good a show is, the people out there that want to be angry will find something wrong with it, or they'll manufacture something wrong with it. So it's like, you come off a great show, you flip on your computer, you go onto any forum, any Skype, any Facebook, any Twitter, any YouTube, any whatever, and this great show will be picked apart for the very, very stupidest reasons on the planet, or reasons that don't exist at all, really. So the most boring thing about wrestling right now is that wrestling fans don't want to enjoy themselves, and I find that kind of tedious. If you guys haven't been paying attention the past little while. What is something Triple H doesn't want you to find when you Google China on the internet? The fact that she did a porno and that could make the WWE look bad. Unfortunately, X-Pac has been back, and X-Pac was in one of those pornos, so that's kind of hypocritical. Rumors going around that China has a penis. Maybe Triple H doesn't want to admit that he was fucking a girl with a penis. This could also be a thing. I don't know, the whole Triple H China thing being re-brought up. I think they opened up a can of worms with that. The Austin podcast that had Triple H on it. Do I agree that China should be in the Hall of Fame? Abso-fucking-lutely. But that being said, Stone Cold Steve Austin bringing that up in the podcast and having Triple H talk about it, leading to Joni Lawyer, I think is her real name, being on the Russo podcast, which I haven't heard yet, but apparently it's very inflammatory. I think it's just dredging up old shit. And it just makes me go, wow, and roll my eyes and whatever. CM Punk being on the Cole Cabana podcast at the time, because he was only a year out. Effects of the walkout were still being felt. It was still relevant, yada, yada, yada. WWE had done whatever they had done. CM Punk got out there to have his piece. This is like 10, 15 years old shit. And I mean, if they've gotten on with their lives, they've gotten on with their lives. But if China has just been sitting on this for 15 years and letting it fester, that's not any good for anybody. It doesn't do any good for the wrestling business. It doesn't do any good for WWE. It doesn't do any good for her. It doesn't do any good for Triple H. I don't see the point of any of it. Where does Shawn Michaels rank in the list of the greatest of all time? Here's what I will say about Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the best total package to come through the WWE ever. The best, and now I'm not saying he's the best at all of these things, but he's the best combination of high flyer, ground worker, grappler, brawler, charisma, promo skills, storytelling ability, selling, ring psychology, presence, main event stature presence. He is the entire package. And in the realm of being the entire package, he's bigger than he's bigger than Flair, he's bigger than Hogan. Because Hogan is the guy that brought wrestling into the mainstream, because he was such a charismatic and loved character. Watch his matches and compare his matches to Shawn Michaels' matches. It's no comparison. Shawn Michaels is a bigger total package than Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's a bigger total package than The Rock. Because there's things that he can do that those guys can't. Austin's a brawler, and Austin's probably one of the greatest brawlers ever. He's a better brawler than Shawn Michaels. For sure. For absolute. But he doesn't have those other things that Shawn Michaels has. People heard me talk about CM Punk. When CM Punk was hitting his stride, and he was in his prime in WWE, I said CM Punk is the next Shawn Michaels. Not because they had a similar character, not because their in-ring style was the same, not because that his promos were similar or they did anything that was even remotely like each other, but that after Shawn Michaels left, the next guy that I saw that was the best total package wrestler, like I say, grappling, brawling, high-flying, psychology, storytelling, presence, popularity, all those things, mic work. The next best thing to come since Shawn Michaels was CM Punk, and can't be touched. Now, there are other people out there in the world that will be better at individual elements like that. Like, okay, Sheamus is a better brawler than CM Punk, but CM Punk could school him on the mat. You could school him in the ring. He could school him in popularity. So you can have guys that are good at one thing, or you can have guys that encapsulate everything. And those are the guys that are universally loved. Look at The Undertaker. Look at Triple H. Or not Triple H so much, because he's not really a high flyer. Look at Shawn Michaels. Look at CM Punk. Look at, okay, slide down the pole a little bit, but look at Daniel Bryan. Look at guys coming up like Tyson Kidd. Look at guys like coming up like Finn Balor and Adrian Neville. Finn Balor has presence. He's just in NXT. He has a presence. He has a following. He can brawl. He can fight. He can grapple on the mat. He can high fly. He's getting there on the mic. But he's got that drawing factor. He may be the next total package to come in after CM Punk. This could be a thing. But Shawn Michaels, best total package wrestler to ever walk through the doors of WWE. Bar none. 21. What was the year or moment these wrestlers became went from more than superstars and turned into legends? Undertaker. Anything that I've seen of The Undertaker, he already had legendary status. Triple H could have been one of a couple of things. When he took over DX from Shawn Michaels, and either his feud with The Rock or his feud with Mick Foley. Shawn Michaels, again, by the time I was watching Shawn Michaels, was already a legend. Stone Cold Steve Austin, at King of the Ring, and when he beat Michaels for the title at WrestleMania 14. Hulk Hogan, always. The Rock became a superstar alongside Triple H in their feud, and it's a feud that still lasts to this day, as we've seen late last year on SmackDown. Why is my thing doing anything? Best childhood memory from wrestling was discovering Monday Night Raw. I used to remember, as a little kid, I would watch wrestling. It was on Saturday mornings. It was just something fun to watch. But I remember I used to have bunk beds with my brother, and I had the top bunk, and we had a little tiny TV, probably about the size of my computer screen. And my parents were having a party. It was all adults, and me being the young kid, what do I want to hang out with all these adults for? I just remember just sitting there channel surfing on a Monday night, and I came on. I don't remember what year it was at all, but I just remember flicking on the TV, and I saw a wrestling ring, and I saw Goldust come to the ring. Now, I'm not saying Goldust even ranks at all on my list of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but I saw the wrestling ring, and I'm like, oh yeah, wrestling. I haven't watched wrestling in a long time. Let's see how this goes. And I want to say it was Brian Pillman that he was fighting, but Goldust came to the ring, and it was so extravagant and weird and different. I was like, it wasn't an oh my god this is great, it was a what the fuck that slowly graduated into me watching Raw. And at that point, what they were doing in Canada was they would play Monday Night Raw, the 2-hour thing, late at night, but before that you would get a 1-hour condensed version of the previous week's Raw. So I would see the go-home show to a pay-per-view the week after the pay-per-view, which didn't make any sense to me. But I just started watching it. I'm like, this is fucking great. And so yeah, like when I retook up watching wrestling again, the first thing I saw was Goldust, and it just made me go, what the fuck? And gradually went from what the fuck to this is fucking great. Thoughts on the Over the Limit 2012. I know you're bad with dates, but this is where CM Punk fought Daniel Bryan and John Cena fought John Laurinaitis. John Cena versus John Laurinaitis was a joke, let's be real. CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan was huge, because the people that had followed these guys through the indies were looking forward to it. The people that had followed them through ROH were looking forward to it. The people that were strictly WWE and had seen these guys come in and thought, hey, I wonder what these guys can do, were looking forward to it. They had mildly touched on Raw a couple of times. This rivalry deserved to be on pay-per-view. And it didn't even really matter. It was one of those things. Storyline matters, build matters, and all that sort of thing. Except when you get a match that's just so good that it doesn't matter how you got there. All you know is CM Punk's facing Daniel Bryan at Over the Limit. Or, sorry. Yeah, it's called Over the Limit. Yes, it is called Over the Limit. Because that feud, whether you're a Daniel Bryan fan, whether you're a CM Punk fan, you were a fan of that feud. You were a fan of that match happening. And that match, as an entity, breaking into pay-per-view, was huge. And the match was phenomenal. The match didn't disappoint, I'm not going to sit here and be a dick and be like, CM Punk carried Daniel Bryan to a great match, even though I could. But no, it was great. You say Cena versus Laurinaitis, but that's such an afterthought, it's ridiculous. Punk versus Bryan obviously should have been the main event, and a lot of people that complain about that are right to do so. Thoughts on Christian appearing at Slammiversary and No Way Out in the span of a week? That was part of the talent exchange between WWE and TNA that happened back then, wasn't it? It showed him as a cross-platform superstar. I think he was there to announce somebody into the Hall of Fame, or something to that effect, in TNA, and then he had a match at No Way Out, I believe it was against Randy Orton. So he went to give back to TNA, who had treated him like a main eventer, and then he went back to WWE, where he definitely wasn't, which is weird. Which is the most underrated match that every wrestling fan needs to see? Oh, wow. The one underrated match. Nobody talks about Mick Foley versus Edge at WrestleMania 25 and that match, and how it was the hardcore element of it, and how badass Edge was. Because a lot of people at that point still saw Edge as a pretty boy, and saw the divas as, just the girls that are outside the ring cheering on their men. I mean, friggin' in the course of that match, Lita took a barbed wire Mr. Socko to the face, which was nice. Edge took the flaming table spot, which nobody, I don't think, expected at the time. This was entirely to build Edge. The success of Edge building on this one match, the credit for that rests solely on the square shoulders of Mick Foley, because he did everything he could to make him look great. It was just fantastic on so many levels. So yeah, if you're watching this, you haven't seen WrestleMania 25, not CM Punk, Mick Foley versus Edge, go check it out. Lita getting barbed wire mandible claw to the face. It's all good. Thoughts on The Miz beating Daniel Bryan. Thoughts on The Miz being Daniel Bryan's pro in NXT Season 1. Daniel Bryan was the plain underdog. I know I'm not entertaining, but I can wrestle, so you guys should all like me guy. The perfect counter to that was The Miz. The Miz was all about showmanship and showbiz and, you know, look at me and all the bravado and all the, you know, you better win, you're gonna make me look bad type thing. It was a good fit. Anybody that had followed Daniel Bryan through the indies and knew what his history in wrestling was absolutely pissed that they would throw him with The Miz, who had been pulled out of reality TV and had now decided to be a wrestler. Like, it pissed off it stirred up the entire audience. That was one of the main things that people were talking about when NXT started, was how can they put him with The Miz? How could they make him the student of The Miz? And I'm sitting here thinking, this is fucking great. No, it was good. And because everybody hated The Miz, it gave Daniel Bryan something incredible to do once he got to the main roster. He took out his teacher. What a great story. Thoughts on the Finger Book of Doom? It was dumb. It got people talking, so... Thoughts on Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler in 2011. It sapped all the credibility that Michael Cole had, which, in hindsight, was very unfortunate, because Michael Cole, when he's not being heel Michael Cole, is good at what he does. Like, I know it's the popular thing to not like Michael Cole and not like commentary in general, but when Michael Cole wasn't trying so hard to be a bad guy, he's quite good. And they took all that away and made him a bad guy, and the match was lame. And the anonymous Raw general manager was involved, and it was just bad. I mean, like, you asked me this question, and I don't mean to insult anybody that's ever asked me a question on these Q&A, but you asked me that question knowing what my answer is going to be, don't you? Thoughts on McMahon's Royal Rumble victory in 1999? Okay. This is a match that pisses me off, especially now, because I've said, and you guys have heard me say, with Daniel Bryan, with other people, the winner of the Royal Rumble match needs to go on to WrestleMania. That is the structure of WWE. That's how it's supposed to happen. Anybody I say that to is going to be like, well, what about 99 when McMahon won? Did you want McMahon to go win the friggin' championship at WrestleMania? And it's like, yes, I'm aware that that's what you're going to bring up. I'm aware. It's fine. You've done what I thought you were going to do, and it's great. McMahon should have never won the Rumble. That's the thing. Like, my problem with this isn't that they put the title shot on the line, because clearly McMahon isn't going to go for the title at WrestleMania. This is not a thing. But it's dumb. It's dumb. Can you imagine the year that Drew Carey was a guest entrant in the Rumble? Can you imagine Drew Carey winning the Rumble? Can you imagine this year? Drew Carey goes on to face Brock Lesnar. No. It was dumb. Thoughts on, with Seth Rollins and Cesaro's Twitter accounts getting hacked, I want to ask you, if you could hack any WWE Superstar's Twitter account, who would it be? I would hack John Cena's, and I would put out one tweet. I'm tired of this nice guy bullshit persona. And leave it. And I would just let Twitter blow up, I would let Facebook blow up, I would let YouTube blow up, and it would just, you'd have one single line, I'm tired of this bullshit nice guy persona, on John Cena's Twitter account. Because I don't know. The one that the thing with Seth Rollins is bullshit, because his wife then releasing pictures of him like, I hope she got arrested, or I hope he pressed charges or did something, because that's fucked up. The one that hacked Cesaro's account, on the one hand, it's bad because you don't do it and it's bad, but on the other hand, if I'm Cesaro, I would have to sit there and smile at some point, because here's this guy acting like me, saying all the things that I want to say, getting the truth out there using my account. And I've got the luxury of being able to go back and saying, well, look, my account got hacked. I didn't say that. You can't pin it on me. So they're two very different scenarios. The Seth Rollins thing was pretty damn vindictive and damaging. The Cesaro thing, though, I mean, like, if a fan is willing to hack a superstar's account to get them over, that is the new age sort of, you know, breaking the doors down, isn't it? That will hopefully, to somebody, say, look, we're willing to commit illegal acts, WWE, start pushing some of the guys we want to push. And again, if you're Cesaro, you have to be upset to a certain degree because, look, this guy's making me look bad. This guy could endanger my job, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, when he puts his head down on his pillow at night, he's like, the fans get it. The fans get it. The fans feel how I feel. It's two very different scenarios, but that's what I would do to John Cena. But I'm not advocating that anybody does that, so I'm not going to say, you know, go and do that. Break John Cena's fourth wall and the whole WWE sort of implodes. Thoughts on the NWO Wolfpack? It was good. There were a bunch of good guys, a bunch of entertaining guys, but it was the start of the disintegration of the NWO storyline, because then you had the NWO Silver, and then it was weird. Where does Triple H rank in the greatest of all time? Near the top, for sure. The guy can be intense and entertaining at the same time. The guy can have a comedy match as part of DX, or he can go into Hell in the Cell and kill somebody, and both of them are equally there. He's got a mind for the business, and I've heard several interviews with him, not just the one on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast. The guy has such an interesting perspective on things. The guy has gone and he's given back in the creation of NXT. Because NXT, when it first came out, was a horrible concept, wasn't it? And then he turned it into what it is now. I would almost rather give him the label of one of the greatest of all time behind the scenes rather than in the ring, because that's where it's shining now. He is producing the next generation, as all the NXT fans will say. Of course, one of the greatest of all time. Revive one company, WCW or ECW, and I'm going to go with ECW. For two reasons. WCW and WWE fought because they were two companies basically doing the same thing and just seeing who was better. ECW was legit a different vibe, a different type of product. So if you want to have competition for WWE, it has to be something that is different. TNA is trying to be different, I get it, but they're failing miserably. I have to watch them on YouTube because they're not even in Canada anymore. Sorry, guys. The other reason is because I never watched ECW in its heyday. So it would be a first for me. Like, I can go back and watch tapes now, but they're out of sync. They're out of... it's not what's happening right now. And this is the thing. Like, I have video collections. I have all the WrestleManias, for example. It's hard for me to get invested in a WrestleMania that's not happening right now. Because part of watching wrestling is it's happening right now. And you can go back and look at a match and look at how great a match was, but you're not in it like you're in the current product. That's just me. Thoughts on The Godfather. Great, impressive big guy, entertaining guy. Talk about a repackaging. From him in the Nation of Domination to him being The Godfather was pretty damn impressive, wasn't it? Thoughts on the New Age Outlaws. One of the best, most entertaining tag teams of all time. Where do the Hardy Boys rank in the greatest tag teams of all time? They're up there. They're up there. I mean, because all the tag teams that we hold up there, like right at the top, like the Legion of Doom and Demolition and all those sort of things, they were big, popular, imposing guys, but the matches weren't great. Like, I'm sorry, I have respect for the Legion of Doom, but I'd rather watch Hardys versus Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys than Legion of Doom versus the Hart Foundation or Legion of Doom versus Demolition, just because the in-ring work is better. It just is. And it's not because I'm disrespecting the past, or it's not because, oh, those old guys aren't around anymore, so fuck them. It's not that at all. It's just I can respect what they were for the business, and you know, it was the big guy world at the time. But no, man, I would rather, as far as in-ring work, in-ring matches, in-ring storytelling, whatever, I would much rather watch the Hardys than the Legion of Doom. That's just a thing. That's just me. That's not me saying concrete Hardys are better than the Legion of Doom. That would be ridiculous. That would be suicidal of me. But for me personally, any day of the week. any day. Do you think Matt or Jeff or both will come back to the WWE? I sure hope so, because both of them deserve a Hall of Fame induction. Go ahead. Pitchforks. Torches. Get them out. Both of them deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Lost my place again. Favorite Daniel Bryan match would probably be the match with Punk. His 2 out of 3 falls match at Extreme Rules with Sheamus was good. His match with Bray Wyatt, and I'm not saying this just because he lost, so shut up, but his match against Bray Wyatt at last year's Royal Rumble was pretty fucking phenomenal. Is Vince McMahon out of touch? Yeah, probably. I'm not going to hop on this one incredibly because I don't want to be part of the thing that happens in the wrestling community where everybody thinks they know what happens backstage. Nobody knows 100% of what happens backstage. Triple H said in his interview with Austin, when he started talking about some of the things that were more unpopular or whatever, well, you know, that's Vince's call. Well, that's Vince's call. And that very well may be true, or it very well may be that Triple H as a backstage presence wants to remain popular. This is a thing. Probably is. I mean, he's fucking, what, like 60, 70 something? So, yeah, probably. Thoughts on Right to Censor? Right to Censor was innovative for its time. I mean, as a young wrestling fan, I was like, oh, fuck off, these guys again. But as you grow up and as you start understanding wrestling more, the fact that you're saying, oh, fuck off, these guys again, meant they were doing their job. It was a great thing. The whole idea that we're going to tell you how to be a good person, how to not be a bad person, etc., etc. I mean, that's what led to the whole Daniel Bryan, I'm vegan, I'm better than you. That's what led to something like CM Punk and the Straight Edge Society. So, was it a great faction? No. Is Stevie Richards, like, certifiably insane? Probably. But they were trailblazers in the realm of, we're going to go out there and be good guys, ultimately, and get booed for it. Because what are they doing? They're going out there and saying, well, guys, we don't really need to use profanity, and we don't need to be overly violent. And in real life society, that's a good thing. But you get booed for it. I don't know, Daniel Bryan vegans are just vegans, but like CM Punk doing the Straight Edge Society bit, I don't drink and I don't do drugs. That should make him the biggest babyface on the planet, but it makes him the biggest heel on the planet. It's fucking fantastic. It was an acknowledgement of symbolism. It was an acknowledgement of, we live in a day and age where whether the message is good or bad, we don't want to be told what to do. We want to be left to our own vices and devices, if that makes sense. It was groundbreaking in a lot of ways. It was a very underwhelming faction as far as like in-ring work and promos and all that sort of thing. I mean, they had their match at WrestleMania against the APA and Taz, which was fine, and Jacqueline beat up Steven Richards, and it was funny, and old White Sox Steven Richards got mocked all the way to the bank. But they served a purpose for sure. What's your favorite face of Foley, Mankind, Cactus Jack, or Dude Love? I'm going to go with Cactus Jack. And the reason for that is Mankind was a character, Dude Love was a character, Cactus Jack was just a dude that wanted to fuck you up. And as soon as you seem like a dude that wants to fuck you up, then you're better. You're better off. Cactus Jack is the precursor to Dean Ambrose, isn't it? Dean Ambrose isn't a character. Dean Ambrose is just a crazy dude that's going to fuck you up. Mankind, of course, as a creepy character, was fantastic. Dude Love, let's be honest, I could have done without. Really. But no, it's got to be Cactus Jack, only because Cactus Jack was the most believable character. And when you've got Mankind scared because Cactus Jack is about to show up, that's fucking fantastic, isn't it? Who's CM Punk's greatest opponent? In-ring, Daniel Bryan, but as a whole, it's got to be John Cena. Nothing encapsulated the attention of the WWE audience as much as CM Punk versus John Cena. Because, as I've said, and I've driven this point into the ground on this channel, CM Punk versus John Cena was the wrestling fans versus WWE. That's what it was. CM Punk was the bad guy going out saying everything we wanted to say about the company, everything we wanted to say about the product, everything we wanted to say about John Cena, and being an asshole. But we were so behind him because he was telling the truth. And he beat John Cena. For us, he knocked Cena out of that spot, at least for one night at Money in the Bank 2011. It was fantastic. And no other match really has grabbed us like that. Because it literally was, and just 100% of the credit to this goes to CM Punk. But it made us, as fans, feel like we were taking on the company by backing CM Punk. And we were backing the bad guy. And again, it's so much easier to be bad, I guess. But no, CM Punk's greatest opponent, overall, John Cena. In ring, Daniel Bryan. Who is Daniel Bryan's greatest opponent? CM Punk. With no precursor at all. Thoughts on Tough Enough? I didn't watch it. Thoughts on Legends House? I don't watch it. Thoughts on Brock Lesnar versus Eddie Guerrero at 2004? No Way Out. Well, let's see. It led to Eddie Guerrero becoming champion, which was a long time coming. It led to Lesnar versus Goldberg at WrestleMania, which was a thing. And it led to Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle, which was one of the funniest victories in the history of WrestleMania. One of. With the whole loosening of the boot, Angle giving the ankle lock to the boot and then losing to Eddie Guerrero. It's all fantastic. It did what the middle pay-per-view was supposed to do. It set up stories for WrestleMania, and it did that in spades. And plus, anybody that was an Eddie Guerrero fan at the time got to feel like $1 million because Eddie busted his ass, and he deserved the title. Better late than never. Thoughts on Floyd Mayweather versus The Big Show at WrestleMania 24? Big Show versus anybody that's not a wrestler is... I know there's earlier in the Q&A there was a question about Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow, but Big Show, between the Mayweather thing and the Akebono sumo wrestling thing, it's just like, okay, here's WrestleMania. Here's Big Show doing anything other than wrestling. He's fighting a guy basically the size of Rey Mysterio and losing. I get that WWE tries to do crossover promotion. I get that with the Akebono thing, maybe they were noticing their numbers were dwindling in Japan, so they had to bring in some Japanese audience. You're trying to cross over. You're trying to get attention from the MMA and boxing world. I don't think you need to have a match to do that. It was crap. It was. They couldn't call it a boxing match. It was like a no-holds-barred pin submission knockout thing. It was just crap, and it wasn't done. It was crap not done well. You can take a crap story and at least make a good match out of it, or you can have a crap match but build a good story around it. But this was just crap wrapped with crap. That's what it is. John Cena's best WrestleMania victory, to me, has to be him winning his first two. His win over JBL and his win over Big Show got him his first mid-card and his first main title, and that was at the peak of his popularity too, where we wanted him to win. Thing is now is we don't want him to win. Oh, no. Where does The Rock versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18 that you attended rank in the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time? I love that you stick in the little bracket things. We know you attended it. Thank you. You'd think I mentioned that a few times or something. Greatest WrestleMania matches of all time? Definitely not. It's not a great match. It's... as far as the in-ring work, as far as any of that technical stuff that you could go into, it's just not. And I was there, and I could admit that. For a spectacle, for just that, holy shit, just saying it out loud, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Just let it be. The marquee value alone was great. The most sustained pop, and I've watched this back on video 100 times, and I can tell you guys because I was there. TV does not do justice to the pop that heel Hollywood Hulk Hogan got in the Skydome in Toronto. Doesn't do justice to the, I want to say, rafter-shattering boos that The Rock got in the Skydome in Toronto. It's just... the crowd was involved. The crowd was absolutely latched on to every elbow drop, every leg drop, every pose, every rock bottom, every big boot, every most basic thing in wrestling that these two guys did. It was fun. It was fun. It wasn't a great match. It didn't need to be. It's much the same... oh, my stomach's talking to me. That's fantastic. It's much the same as Rock Cena, the first time. Now, say what you will about The Rock, say what you will about Cena these days. Rock Cena didn't need to be a good match, and it wasn't. Let's be real. But the spectacle of it was great. This was 1,000 times that. This was like, this match is crap, and we love it, because look at what it is. It's probably one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania history. One of the biggest. Even though as a match it sucks. If you go and look at this, if you put masks on these two guys, and you put them in plain wrestling clothes, and you didn't know who they were, and you just watched the match is shit. Like, the match is like, maybe 1, maybe 2 out of 10. The crowd, and who these guys are, and the weight of these two legacies coming together, make it one of the best matches in WrestleMania history. So it's fantastic. Should Matt Hardy have won the world title? The world title, I mean, if you're talking about when they were separated and you had the world title and the WWE title, if you wanted to give Matt Hardy the world title and have him run roughshod on SmackDown for a while, wouldn't have hurt my feelings. The big main WWE hood ornament, no. Just no. Prediction time. What will be the main event of WrestleMania 32? I think, in all honesty, the way we're going right now, the main event of WrestleMania 32 should be the main event of Fastlane last Sunday. Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. Cheney says, and he starts off, because you got to remember, these comments are posted on my February Q&A, where Zohan sent me 100 questions. So Cheney, first of all, says, "Holy shit, Zohan, save your ammo," which makes me smile. Question number 1. With the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view being no more, do you think we'll see it back at the Big Four pay-per-views like SummerSlam, Survivor Series, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble? Fingers crossed for WrestleMania. I don't think we'll see it at WrestleMania. I really don't. But then again, I would have said that we wouldn't see Hell in the Cell at WrestleMania either, and we definitely did. Twice. Elimination Chamber shouldn't matter what pay-per-view it's on. Elimination Chamber should happen when it's warranted, like Hell in the Cell should happen when it's warranted, when the feud calls for it, type of thing. If you're going to assign it to a pay-per-view, I'd assign it to Survivor Series. 6 guys go in and 1 guy survives. The symbolism is right there. I don't think we'll see it at WrestleMania. I just don't. The new trademark WrestleMania thing is now the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. The WrestleMania thing used to be Money in the Bank, which I think it still should be. But now they've replaced that with the Battle Royal, which is fine. It gets more guys on the card than Money in the Bank did, and it gets more guys on the card than the Elimination Chamber would. But, yeah, all that being said, no, I don't think you're going to see it at Mania. Do you think Cyndi Lauper should be inducted into the Celebrity Wing of the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. If you had to choose between Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior, who would you bring back to life? Oh, that's not even fair, man. Come on. Warrior all day, only because he's a more animated character, and I think Warrior today versus Undertaker today would be entertaining, if nothing else. Who would you like to see as playable characters in the WWE 2K15 that aren't included at all? My money was on the New Age Outlaws. My money would be on the New Age Outlaws as well. I don't mind that at all. Legion of Doom might be nice. Just more WCW guys in general. Yeah, I would say Chris Benoit, but that's not a thing. Apparently, because I don't play WWE 2K15 online, I just don't. But apparently, if you go online and you create a Chris Benoit character, you will get kicked off the WWE 2K15 network, which I think is incredibly funny. Considering there was a shitload of interference from Kevin Nash in the Austin Hall match at WrestleMania X8, do you think it should have been a handicap match, Hall and Nash versus Stone Cold? I can see where you would think that. I mean, get get Nash an actual match on the card and have Stone Cold Steve Austin's victory mean more. But the thing of it is Hall and Nash are heels. If they were both legally involved in the match, they wouldn't be bad guys. They would just be two guys in a handicap match. Whereas Nash being on the outside and doing all the heely shit made him a heel and made Hall's loss even more effective. Whereas the badness comes from he interfered when he wasn't supposed to. If it was a handicap match, then yeah, it would still have been a 2-on-1. Stone Cold Steve Austin definitely still would have been the face, but his actions would have been less bad and less build towards his heel character. So I think it made sense to have him on the outside where he wasn't supposed to be doing things he wasn't supposed to be doing. As a heel, I think that was incredible. And Scott Hall, let's be real, overselling the Stone Cold Stunner was fucking hilarious. Job, Team, and Barry Masters Edition. The Shockmaster, the Ringmaster, and the Titty Master. Obviously I'd bury the Shockmaster, but Shockmaster basically buried himself. I would tag team with the Titty Master because he's one of the hottest talents in the WWE right now. And I would job to the Ringmaster because, let's be honest, the Ringmaster went on to become Stone Cold Steve Austin, and who can blame you for losing to Stone Cold Steve Austin? I know how you feel about people like Bryan and Mysterio being world champs, but hear me out on this one. Should Tyson Kidd capture the WWE title at some point in his career? It would also add to the Hart family legacy, and another one from your neck of the woods would be remembered as a world champion. Hey, shot on my shoulder for being Canadian. Good job. You gotta understand, my issue with Bryan and Mysterio being world champions is not strictly because of their size, it's how they're booked. They're smaller guys, and that's fine. If Bryan won the title from CM Punk, it wouldn't bother me. If Rey Mysterio wasn't booked like an absolute cartoon sketch of John Cena, it wouldn't hurt my feelings as much. But you have to emphasize the fact that they're small by putting them up against Mark Henry, and The Big Show, and The Great Khali, and Brock Lesnar. And it's just, it makes it unbelievable. Also, you look at the booking of Daniel Bryan this year. Reason I don't want him to face Brock Lesnar. A, him beating Brock Lesnar isn't believable. It's not. But also, let's look at it. He took a year off, came back, declared himself in the Royal Rumble, because in WWE, if you want to become a #1 contender, go get hurt. Lost the Rumble before the number 13th entrant was even in. Got another shot at it because him and his fans cried, and lost to Roman Reigns. So at this point, if they throw Daniel Bryan back in the title picture, I'm done. I'm done with the title match. The title match is great the way it is right now. If they had booked him strong, if he had had a year to build up his character, if he had had a strong performance in the Royal Rumble, I still wouldn't want him to face Brock Lesnar, but I would be a hell of a lot more easy with it than I am right now. Tyson Kidd, if you built him properly and whatever, if Daniel Bryan, let's say Daniel Bryan, right? He goes on, he's involved in some triple threat match somewhere down the road with Rollins and Reigns, and somehow he comes out with the championship. The gods smile down, WrestleMania returns, and all that bullshit. He has a good lengthy title run. Tyson Kidd slowly builds himself up, becomes the Intercontinental Champion, loses the Intercontinental Championship. 2 or 3 years down the road, he wins the Royal Rumble. Tyson Kidd wins the title off Daniel Bryan. No problem with that whatsoever. Absolutely none. Would I have a problem with Tyson Kidd being a world champion? Absolutely not. What's your favorite Big Show match that he's won? I like the match that he won against Cody Rhodes a couple years ago at WrestleMania, only because it led to the Extreme Rules match where he stepped through a table and eliminated himself. What's your favorite match that what's your favorite Chris Jericho match that he's lost? It would be the 2 matches that he had with CM Punk at WrestleMania and at Extreme Rules. Over the WWE Championship, because they were both fantastic, 2 great workers, and Chris Jericho, even in a losing effort, did not look bad at all. So, there you go. There you go. You can lose nicely. Daniel Bryan could learn from this. But anyways, Chris Jericho went in, made CM Punk look like absolute fucking gold. Number 10, referring to my first question about the Elimination Chamber, I'd like to know what your opinion would be of this fantasy match for WrestleMania 31. I'm pretty sure it won't happen, but I figured this would make everybody happy. An Elimination Chamber match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match consisting of Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, John Cena, and Dean Ambrose. I would say take out John Cena, put in Dolph Ziggler, and I would say, what would the rest of the card be? It's a great match, but what would the rest of the card be? No, it would be a great match, honestly. I mean, Brock Lesnar does what he does. Roman Reigns does what he does. Daniel Bryan's great. Seth Rollins is fantastic. Toss in Ziggler. Ziggler would bump for everybody like he always does in the chamber. And I could see Dean Ambrose winning that, honestly. I really, really could. And the last one is one more question from the Zohan. I think the Fastlane pay-per-view will be a one and done. It only exists to get around Brock Lesnar's title defense, and the Chamber pay-per-view will be returning in 2016. Is that you asking me if you agree? Because if you're asking me if I agree, the answer is no. Elimination Chamber isn't necessary anymore. Like I said, when you had two belts, one championship match was built at Rumble, the other one was built at the Elimination Chamber. The other thing being is I don't think there needs to be a title match at the in-between pay-per-view. There really doesn't. You could have like a big six-man whatever. You could do like they did back at No Way Out of Texas and have like, if they wanted to go into this pay-per-view, like Fastlane, this past Sunday, if they had wanted to do like a Survivor Series type match, like Team Lesnar versus Team Reigns, they could have done something like that. But I don't think the middle pay-per-view needs to have a title match on it. It really, really doesn't. If you wanted to use the middle pay-per-view and the Elimination Chamber stipulation to boost, say, the Intercontinental Championship, for example, that would be fine. If you'd taken like Wade Barrett, Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, R-Truth, Fandango, and Seth Rollins, throw them in the Elimination Chamber, see what they can do. Because the Elimination Chamber match does draw a lot of eyes. You want to draw a lot of eyes to your mid-card, make your mid-card titles seem more important. That I wouldn't mind at all. That would be fantastic. But I don't think they would give a main event spot to a mid-card championship, which is really unfortunate. Like, you're never going to see a Hell in the Cell for the United States Championship. It's not going to happen. You're never going to see a tag team title casket match. You're just not, which is unfortunate. But yeah, if they bring back the Elimination Chamber for the in-between pay-per-view, I don't think it has much place unless you're going to use it to boost one of the mid-card titles. Because, as we all know, as I've said several times in this Q&A, the Royal Rumble sets up WrestleMania. The middle pay-per-view is build, and that's what it should be. Anyways, that was fantastic. That was 96 questions knocked out of the park. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for continuing to contribute to this series. As I said, it's becoming one of my favorite things that I do in the wrestling month. If you want your questions to be in the March Ask the Phoenix Q&A, put them down in the box below, or at the very least, find me on Facebook and send them to me there. But if you do it that way, don't blame me if they get lost. You guys are fantastic. One more shout out to Guapo and the guys at the Wrestle Recap crew. Hopefully I can get you guys out here to join me for Tackle. Losing my voice, as you guys can tell. It's tired in here. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going, toss your questions for the March Q&A. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.
Like me, don't apologize. They can't hold you down. You were born to rise. It's our time now to come out. If you're a freak like me.